Hi everybody, Mike Hoffman here, and today we're going to be looking at video and 3D within Photoshop. This tutorial is brought to you by TipSquirrel at www.tipsquirrel.com. For all kinds of Photoshop and Lightroom goodness, follow at TipSquirrel on Twitter or go to facebook.com/tipsquirrel. In last week's tutorial, we looked at adding video into our Photoshop document, and we used a text layer to actually clip the video by creating a clipping mask, and we ended up with a video that played within moving text that we had animated. Today we're going to take this video project to the next dimension, to the third dimension that is, because we're going to be adding a 3D element to this video animation, and we're going to create an additional level of effects beyond what we have here. Now before we get started with that, we just want to tweak this original video. What we have here at the end of the video is that the video ends with the letters M and E shown, and what we'd like to have is the illusion of the word zooming out so that we can see the full word extreme at the end. So what we're going to do is take this final keyframe that represents the end of the animation, and we're just going to drag this over to about the 8-second mark. And what will happen now is, as we scrub the playhead through, you can see that the animation occurs with the text up to that keyframe right there, and then nothing happens although the video keeps playing. So what we want to do now is, at the very end of the timeline, we want to add another keyframe, which we'll do by clicking this diamond right here. Now you can see we've got another keyframe, and at this point we're going to create an additional transform. So we're going to select the text layer, and we're going to hit Command or Control T to do a transform. And then we're going to follow that with Command 0 or Control 0, which will zoom all the way out so that we can see the handles of our object. Now I'm going to grab the corner here, and I'm going to hold Shift to constrain this proportionally, and I'm going to drag it so that the word extreme is contained completely within our video frame, and then I'll commit that. Now we're going to center this vertically by pressing Command or Control A to select all, and then using the Move tool we'll choose the vertical center alignment option here, and that'll put it right in the center. Command or Control D to deselect, and we can zoom that back in. So now if we scrub the playhead, we can see that the text moves across until we reach this keyframe here, and from this point to the end the text moves back until at the very end of the timeline it's centered within the frame. Now we've got our video where we want it. Let's turn this into a 3D object so that we can move the entire video around in 3D. To do that, we'll want to start by taking these two layers, both the video layer and the text layer, and shift selecting them. Then choosing the flyout menu from the layers panel, we'll choose Convert to Smart Object. Now we've got a single smart object here that embeds both the video and the text layer together, and yet we can still play it within our timeline. Now with this smart object selected in the layers panel, we're going to choose 3D, New Mesh from Layer, Postcard. And if you're not already in the 3D workspace, you may get a dialog prompt asking you if you want to switch to the 3D workspace, and I would recommend that at this point. Now we're looking at a 3D postcard, and you can see the ground plane there representing the floor, as it were, in our 3D space. And if we've got current view selected here in the 3D panel, and we've got our 3D camera selected here in the Properties panel, we can choose the Move tool, and with the Move tool selected, we can choose one of these icons here to move the 3D camera around. So let's just choose the 3D Object Rotate tool, or in this case the 3D Camera Rotate tool. We can grab this And you can see that by moving the camera around, the entire world moves. So it's as if we're shuttling the camera around within the 3D space. Now I'll hit Command Z or Control Z to undo that. And what I want to do is have the animation such that we end in this flat configuration, but we're going to start out in a crazy weird angle. So the easiest way to do that is to move the playhead all the way to the end of our timeline. And that's where we want to end up at. We'll twist open this triangle right here, and we're going to be working this time with the 3D camera position. So making sure that our timeline is at the very end, we're going to click the stopwatch next to 3D camera position to create a keyframe right here at the end. Now what we'll do is we'll go to the beginning of the animation and we'll add another keyframe. So with the first keyframe selected, now we can move our 3D object around. So we'll use again the 3D camera rotate tool, and we'll swing this around about in that aspect ratio. And you can see that the text is still clipped off the end of the object here. We can't see the text extending out into the distance because that text is embedded within the smart object. With the 3D postcard rotated around like so, we'll grab the slide tool and we'll move our camera in a little bit closer so that we fill the frame. We may have twisted it around a little bit too far, but we'll want to bring this in so it fills the frame and we can just see the edge of it, and that's where we want the animation to begin. So now as we scrub our playhead across, we can see that the text not only slides from left to right, but it also rotates from about a 45-degree angle to that straight on view and then flat out as it zooms out. Now what we'd like to do is have that rotational feature ending a little bit earlier on, so we can just drag this keyframe a little bit to the left. Now at this point, we can go ahead and play our animation, let it run through and render, and we'll see how it does. And there I've let mine render. It may take a couple minutes on your system depending on the speed, but now we can play it all the way through and see how it looks. And there you can see the text is streaming from left to right as well as on an angle. The 3D postcard is rotating around, and now the text is zooming out, and there our video is complete. So at this point, we're free to add additional effects. For example, with a 3D layer, let's close the timeline up here. We could add an audio track. We could just click this drop-down list here and say Add Audio. We could go to the Layers panel, and with our 3D postcard layer selected, we can do things like add a layer effect. For example, let's say we wanted to add a stroke. We can pick the color, and we'll choose a color that's here within our image. That's good. We'll make it a little bit bigger. And maybe even a drop shadow. And with the drop shadow, we'll want to drag that out a little bit and make it a little bit bigger. Maybe increase the size a little bit to soften it up. And now we can go back and once again rewind to the beginning and render this video with the extra effects. Again, this could take a few minutes depending on the speed of your system, but once you've got it rendered, you can play through at full speed, and here you have the finished effect. So we've got Photoshop, we've got video, we've got 3D, and we've got animation all happening within the same document. How cool is that? I hope you enjoyed today's tutorial. My name is Mike Hoffman. My website is hoffmanartdesign.com. You'll find a variety of photography and Photoshop tutorials and related information there. Or you can follow me at mhoffman2001 on Twitter. Or you can find me on Google Plus by simply going to gplusmikehoffman.com. Thanks very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed today's tutorial. Stop back and see us again here at TipSquirrel.